Discover the amazing, transformative journey of a heart that hasn't known love in 7 long years. Max Parker felt the rain patter relentlessly against the windows of his quaint bookstore, a place that had become his sanctuary and prison. For 7 years, he had lived within the pages of novels, shielding himself from the wounds caused by a love that once burned brightly but ended in ash and disappointment. The store thrived on the literary dreams whispered among its shelves while he silently battled his own despair. Today, something stirred inside him as he rummaged through a box of family heirlooms. Nestled among dusty trinkets, a faded photograph of his grandmother caught his eye, a renowned artist whose legacy had long since faded from both memory and canvas. Who was she, really? Why had she abandoned her passion? Questions clawed at him, igniting a restless yearning for understanding that contradicted his toughened resolve to keep his heart safely locked away. Just as he felt hope swelling, a tightening knot of dread threatened to eclipse it. Sales were dwindling, and every click of a mouse from Amazon felt like a nail in the coffin of his dreams. Before he could spiral further, a thought raced through his mind. Should he risk everything and defy the odds to revive his grandmother's legacy, or retreat to the comfort of solitude that was slowly suffocating his spirit? The fear of vulnerability clawed at him. The thought of exposure, even to the echoes of long-lost passions, felt unbearable. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As Max pondered his choices, the bustling street outside reflected the growing pressure around him. Voices of passers-by blended with the rain, a rhythmic reminder of a life he felt increasingly detached from. Eleanor Dunn's unexpected visit had ignited something within him, a flicker of creativity long buried under layers of neglect. Could he embrace that spark despite the risks? The more he wrestled with the idea, the sharper the pang of dread became. Moments of stillness in the bookstore became brief breaths before plunging into chaos. Could he really challenge a new commercial complex that threatened to demolish his grandmother's gallery, essentially bulldozing the echoes of both legacy and potential love? The weight of silence pressed against him, heavy with the last echoes of a love lost, the betrayal that had cast him into this self-imposed exile. Max felt the urge to confront both the inevitable and the unknown. Perhaps it wasn't just about saving a gallery. It was a battle for his own heart, an act of defiance against a life characterized by quiet despair. As the tension spiraled, he stood frozen in the dim light of his bookstore, heart racing, mind entwined with thoughts of Eleanor, of art, of legacy. Was he truly prepared to throw himself back into all of it, risking not only heartbreak, but the chance to reclaim pieces of himself he had long abandoned? The looming town planning meeting crept closer, and dread coiled tightly within him, leaving no easy escape. The time for action was slipping away, and with it, a chance to uncover who he could be if only he could bear the weight of love, legacy, and vulnerability crushing down on him. Max stood amid the soft rustle of pages and the muted drip of rain, a storm of thoughts swirling within him. The photograph of his grandmother remained clutched in his hand, a portal to an identity he barely knew. Each crease in the picture echoed with the unasked questions: what had driven her to silence her art? And was he, by extension, making the same choices to silence his own potential? His bookstore had, for too long, served as both a refuge and a comfortable prison. The smell of aged paper and ink, the gentle creak of the wooden floor beneath his feet, the very essence of the place felt like a warm embrace. Yet it kept him locked in a cycle of routine and sorrow. It was safer to remain a distant witness of life than to step into the turmoil outside those doors. But in that moment, surrounded by echoes from the past, he questioned whether safety was worth the cost of growth. Taking a deep breath, Max thought about the upcoming town planning meeting. It loomed like a specter, an impending confrontation against a faceless threat representing the fate of his grandmother's gallery. The thought of allowing the gallery to fade into oblivion was unfathomable. Yet, did he possess enough courage to champion a cause that felt so deeply personal? Wasn't he at time to shatter the silence, to invite others to witness his struggle? He resolved to channel the creative energy Eleanor had sparked within him. Perhaps he could host an exhibit in the bookstore, a tribute to his grandmother that intertwined art with literature. The thought ignited a flicker of excitement amid his fear. What if his faded memories of her work could be revitalized? What if he dared to extend an invitation to the community, a call for collaboration and support? The idea of reaching out felt intoxicating and terrifying. It demanded transparency, a rawness he had avoided for so long. The notion that he might invite friends, neighbors, and strangers into his world, a world tinged with vulnerability and hope, sent shivers down his spine. But this was a chance to redefine his narrative, to bridge the chasm he'd carved between the past and the present. With determination stealing his resolve, Max imagined his grandmother's art displayed prominently in his store, paired with passages from her favorite novels. It would tell a story of loss, legacy, and the unfathomable journey of reclaiming one's heart. He visualized mingling the scents of fresh coffee with the musk of paper, creating a refuge where creativity could flourish, even in small doses. Finally, he picked up a pen, ready to draft a flyer for the event. Each word felt like a daring step forward, laced with the tension of what he hoped it could become, but also the emotional stakes entailed in inviting public scrutiny. Would the gallery's legacy, through him, finally reclaim the voice it had lost? As he set his pen down, breathing heavily, the reality of the choice loomed. The risk weighed on him. Could he bear to be judged so openly? Would he find support or ridicule among those he yearned to connect with? Just as he steadied himself, a sudden gust of wind rattled the window, bringing with it an unexpected noise from outside, a shouting voice, punctured by the sound of a vehicle revving angrily. It served as a grim reminder of the volatility that surrounded his decisions. Chaos was never far away, and sometimes it took external forces to beckon personal transformation. Max felt the familiar anxiety grip him again, yet was accompanied by a newfound resolve. The moment had come to face not only the impending meeting, but the shadows lurking within his fears, his past, and the chance to step into the light of his own creation. Would he, at long last, challenge the story that had stifled him for so long? With an racing heartbeat, he turned to the door, ready to confront the chaos outside. Open, unresolved questions flared in his chest. Was he ready to embrace the world again, to extend genuine invitations to others and himself alike? And what awaited him on the other side of this threshold remained uncertain but one. Thing was clear, the moment of truth was upon him. Max stepped outside, the chaotic energy of the street flooding his senses. The shouting cut through the air, a confrontational argument between two strangers ignited by impatience. However, instead of retreating back into the sanctuary of his bookstore, where silence wrapped protectively around him, he stood there, absorbing the raw human emotions on display. With the flyer's finality lingering in his mind, Max could feel an invisible thread connecting him to the day's events, a strange synchronicity. The confrontation on the street was a form of life he'd overlooked, a reminder that every day was woven with a tapestry of disruptions and connections. These voices, a blend of anger and frustration, could embody the feelings he'd suppressed for years. Why then had he isolated himself inside his bubble of ink and dust? Pushing that thought aside, he focused on what lay ahead. The town planning meeting was only hours away. An unsettling mix of excitement and trepidation gripped him. Max needed to make a choice. Would he speak up about his grandmother's gallery, or would he fade into the background, letting the opportunity slip away like so many lost moments before? As he walked down the sidewalk, the gentle patter of raindrops began, almost as if the universe were sending him a signal to breathe and center himself. Each drop seemed to drum an internal rhythm, urging him forward. He rehearsed what he would say. If he could just muster the courage to stand among the board members, to share stories of his grandmother's art and the significance it had held in the community. But doubt gnawed at him. What if they dismissed his passion as mere nostalgia? What if they ridiculed his efforts? Max shook his head, dispelling the negative thoughts. He recognized that inaction would be equivalent to painting over the vibrant colors of his own story with beige monotony. As adrenaline coursed through him, he remembered the flutter of anticipation that had first sparked the idea of the exhibit, the glimmer of hope. What if this was his chance to reclaim not only his grandmother's legacy, but his own as well? Bit by bit, determination replaced his fear. He was not just a bookstore owner anymore. He could become a voice for those silenced. He thought back to how often he had allowed apprehension to dictate his choices, how it had kept him nestled in the cocoon of safety, stifling his growth. Today, that would not happen. Today, he would show up. When he reached the town hall, a pulse of energy surged through him. Seeing the crowd gathering sparked excitement mingled with nerves. He could hear snippets of conversations, see faces familiar and new. As he approached the entrance, he steadied himself, preparing for the impending confrontation with not just the town board, but with the deeper layers of himself that demanded acknowledgement. Well, what is it going to be? He whispered to himself as he gazed at the imposing doors. Would he step through? Taking a moment, he closed his eyes to center his breath, envisioning his grandmother standing beside him, nodding in encouragement. Her presence was palpable, a reminder of art's power to evoke emotion, to share stories, to connect. He opened his eyes and, with newfound clarity, reached for the handle. Just then, a loud commotion erupted from the crowd, punctuated by the sharp quack of a voice he recognized. "We need to save the gallery." It was a woman from town who had been an advocate for arts programs. Max felt a jolt of inspiration. If others were willing to fight for what mattered, so could he. Perhaps he was not alone. As he stepped over the threshold into the hall, that pulse began to quicken. The moment demanded all of him. Could he channel the essence of his grandmother through his words? In that intoxicating juncture between the past and future, Max felt it, a familial tie, a commitment, a battle cry forming within. He expected honesty, vulnerability, and heartache, but also a transformation that could ripple through his existence and the community. And as the doors swung open wide, he took his first step into the unknown with a stirring question looming overhead. What if this was the beginning of reshaping not just his own legacy, but the very fabric of the community he wished to reclaim? The moment Max crossed the threshold into the town hall, the swell of voices filled him with both exhilaration and trepidation. It was like stepping into a canvas splashed with vibrant colors, each one representing a different energy, a different thought. He took a breath and forced himself to focus on the weight of his purpose. This was more than just a legacy. It was a tribute to his grandmother's passion and a chance to reclaim his own voice. As he navigated through the throng, the air buzzed with anticipation and determination. He noticed a cluster of familiar faces, supporters of the arts, and memorable figures from his childhood. Yet, amidst this familiarity, he felt a sense of isolation looming. The critical voices in his mind whispered doubt. Were any of them aware of his struggle? Did they view him only as the reclusive bookstore owner who read more than he spoke? Max brushed these thoughts aside. Envisioning his grandmother's unwavering spirit, he pushed towards the front. He could see the board members seated at a table laden with papers heavily invested in the proceedings, yet potentially disconnected from the true heart of the town. He needed to bridge that gap. The meeting commenced, and each presentation by other town members only intensified Max's internal conflict. Passionate pleas echoed through the hall, buzzing with community spirit, but he felt like a ghost at a party, a mere spectator. He clenched his fists, fighting against the swelling tide of self-doubt. Every encouraging word uttered by the townsfolk brought forth memories of art classes he shared with his grandmother, her laughter, her encouragement, her belief in the beauty of storytelling through art. Then it hit him. He had a story too, one that intertwined with her legacy. The moment the board called for the next speaker, Max's heart raced. It felt like he teetered on the brink of a precipice. But then clarity struck. He approached the podium, legs shaking. For a heartbeat, he hesitated, but recalling the vibrant threads of his grandmother's teachings, he leaned into the mic, his voice finding strength. I'm here to speak about something that has woven itself into our community fabric, my grandmother's gallery. As he shared anecdotes about the gallery's significance, his words began to resonate, invoking nostalgia, laughter, and even tears in the audience. He spoke of community, connection, and the importance of art in capturing shared experiences. Each sentence dismissed the doubts that had lingered within him like stubborn shadows. Max's voice grew steadier, fueled by the responsiveness of the crowd. He noticed heads nodding, eyes lighting up with recognition. The more he spoke, the more he embodied his grandmother's spirit. Her passion infused his words with newfound purpose. He could see how the art held people together, how it provided solace and connection, how it had given him the strength to step out into this moment. Then, the moment shifted as a board member interjected. But what's the practicality? We have limited funding. How do you propose we find resources to maintain this gallery? The question struck him like a blow, unearthing yet another layer of vulnerability. Max hesitated. The enormity of the challenge dawned on him. This was not just about passion, it was about action. Ideas swirled in his mind as reality pushed down hard. Did he have the right solution? He could feel the anxieties creeping back in, but they were now laced with determination. This was the moment where the abstract would hit the real world, where plans would need to be drawn and executed. Maybe we can create community partnerships, involve local businesses, he offered, voice trembling but tenacious. It was a gamble, using the feeling of vulnerability as a bridge to practicality. Yet, as he glanced at the supportive faces, something deeper flickered within him. What if this was merely the beginning? Perhaps transforming the legacy of the gallery could simultaneously redefine his own path. Max stepped away from the podium, heart pounding with both exhilaration and fear. He had entered the space as an echo of a past, yet emerged as an active participant in his destiny, challenging the confines of his own growth. But as applause mingled with uncertain murmurs, a distant voice rang, clear a rival who had always considered art insignificant, who now rose to challenge him. Max braced himself, ready to confront not just an adversary, but the parts of himself that feared rejection and questioned worth. In the height of uncertainty, he stood rooted in this new chapter, poised for a revelation that was yet to unfold. Would the depth of his resolve echo louder than doubt? The moment had come to face the truth. What would he discover about himself in the struggle ahead? As the last echoes of applause faded, a silence enveloped the room, heavy with tension. Max felt the weight of scrutiny pressing against him, especially as he recognized the figure stepping forward, Vera, an influential member of the board and an outspoken critic of the arts. Her piercing gaze was a challenge that ignited both anxiety and resolve within him. She had always dismissed creativity as frivolous, believing that practicality must triumph over expression. Well, Max, she began, her tone dripping with skepticism. It sounds touching, your tribute to your grandmother. But you really think we can revitalize the gallery on ideas alone? Without financial backing or a sound plan? Your dream is just that, a dream. Somewhere in Max's mind, the voice of doubt reared its ugly head. What if she was right? What if he considered the real implications of his vision? Omar, the local baker, who had just spoken about community partnerships, caught Max's eye from the crowd, offering a subtle nod of encouragement. That gesture pulled him back from the precipice of despair. Vera, he took a breath, letting conviction anchor him. I acknowledge the challenges ahead. However, the value of art shouldn't just be measured in financial terms. It breathes life into our community. It invites engagement, collaboration. Art connects us, and with the right approach, We can forge pathways that benefit everyone, businesses, artists, and the town. He felt the passion surging within him again, quelling his doubts. It was about more than just maintaining a gallery. It was about igniting a shared vision. Imagine businesses showcasing art from local creators' windows that not only sell, but celebrate. What if we organize workshops led by those artists that draw people in and foster community spirit? Max noted the flickers of intrigue among the crowd, but he also saw skepticism etched on Vera's face. It was a challenge, and he needed to be prepared for her retort. Workshops, partnerships, sounds great, but who will pay for it? And what about sustainability? I want to believe in your vision, Max. I really do. But how do you mitigate the financial risk? The confrontation was bringing out a clarity he hadn't anticipated. Then let us mitigate the risk together. His voice rose above the murmurs, emboldened by the palpable energy in the hall. We could launch a fundraising initiative. I have connections, artists willing to donate pieces for auctions. Perhaps even user-driven online campaigns where community members could fund specific needs for the gallery. Max felt the rush of adrenaline propelling him forward. The criticisms that had churned anxiety inside him transformed into a determination to convince, to inspire. His ideas began to crystallize like a mosaic under his fingers, highlighting the potential for a shared investment. Yet the reality of the insurmountable burden flooded back with a vengeance. Was he ready for this? Could he truly bring this forward? His heart raced, not from fear, but from the stark realization that this was your chance to not only honor his grandmother's legacy, but to carve out a new path for his own identity as a leader. Vera's expression softened slightly, a flicker of curiosity breaking through her defenses. "Very well, Max. You have my attention," she said, but there was a newfound caution. Prove that you can create a solid framework for these partnerships. Illustrate their effectiveness in retaining community engagement and fostering growth. The board has to see tangible proposals, or our support will be tenuous. Her acceptance sparked a cautious ember of hope deep within him. Finally, he was engaging in a meaningful conversation that acknowledged the financial realities he needed to navigate. This could be the catalyst for everything he wanted to achieve, but not without introspection and work. As he stepped away from the podium, surrounded by scrutinizing eyes, he realized that his journey was no longer just about carrying forward his grandmother's dream. It was about defining his own, a transformation catalyzed by conflict and the relentless pursuit of purpose. Max felt energized by the battle ahead, yet there was still an unexamined depth within him. What pieces of himself had he left unexplored? He had re-engaged his voice, but would he discover an unexpected reservoir of strength to fight for this vision? Little did he know, as he exited the town hall, the unseen rival that lurked within him, fear of failure, doubt of worth, would soon demand their final confrontation. What could he find if he dared to delve deeper into himself? As Max stepped out into the cool evening air, the weight of his own thoughts pressed against him in a different way. Each step he took felt heavier, laden with the expectations he sensed emanating from the board members. This wasn't just about the gallery anymore. It was about him, his identity, and the legacy he sought to build. Around him, the sounds of the town drifted, a cacophony of life that contrasted sharply with his introspection. He ambled towards the diner, his usual haunt, where the comforting smell of coffee and fresh pastries beckoned. It was a haven where he often pondered over his sketches and plans for the gallery. But today, the usual sense of calm was overshadowed by the echoes of Vera's piercing questions. Each word she had hurled at him was like a stone cast into the still waters of his resolve, sending ripples of uncertainty that stretched far beyond his initial enthusiasm. Inside, he spotted Omar, the baker, slumped over a table with a notepad filled with scribbles. Taking a seat opposite him, Max felt the familiar warmth of friendship envelop him, a stark contrast to the churning doubt within. "You're great out there," Omar said, lifting his gaze. "I don't think Vera is as tough as she seems." Max couldn't mask his frustration, the words tumbling out before he could rein them in. "She is right, though. I need to prove that my ideas can actually work." I have no concrete plan, and I can feel the board's skepticism as if it was a physical weight. Each admission felt like a release, shedding the layers of pride he had cloaked himself in. Your passion is your strength, Omar countered, eyes narrowing thoughtfully. But if you want to make it more than just a dream, you need numbers, a strategy. It's not about ignoring your emotions. It's about merging them with your ambitions in a way that makes sense to others. The notion struck a chord. Max had navigated the emotional terrain of art and expression, but had shied away from the financial intricacies that tethered them to reality. He had always assumed that passion would carry him through, but the vision he had ignited had become entwined with the expectation of success, a double-edged sword. Let's brainstorm, Max suggested, excitement flickering to life again. What if I build a proposal that outlines potential funding streams? Local businesses could partner with art installations. Advertising would take a backseat to supporting art while getting eyes on their brands. Omar nodded, energized by the idea. And you can include workshops as means of drawing in people and generating revenue. Make it enticing for them. As they mapped out the potential structure together, Max felt the fog of self-doubt begin to lift, replaced by clarity and purpose. His hand flew over the notepad, sketching ideas for fundraising events, artist collaborations, and an outreach plan designed to engage the community, not as a collective, but as individuals with something to gain from the gallery's success. But with each stroke of the pen came a nagging thought, the fear of inadequacy that had lingered longer than he cared to admit. Was he truly capable of executing this plan? Could he bridge the gap between art's passion and the business world's pragmatism? There was still uncertainty, but now it accompanied a growing resolve. Max looked up from the page, determination glinting in his eye. I won't just prove Vera wrong. I'll show her that art and financial viability can coexist, that pursuing my dream doesn't mean compromising on my values. With a burgeoning plan taking form, he was faced with a pivotal choice. Continue working doggedly to solidify the proposal or risk exposing his insecurities by seeking feedback from the rest of the board. The latter felt terrifying, a cruel import of vulnerability, but it also felt like the step he needed to take a leap of faith where he would either soar or crash. In that moment, he resolved to confront the risk head-on, not just for the gallery, but for all the pieces of himself he had yet to uncover. The time had come to face the lurking shadow of self-doubt, to wrestle with the fear that had held him back for too long. As he and Omar refined the proposal late into the night, a new idea sparked in Max's mind. What if he reached out to fellow creatives, artists who had defied the odds? They could lend their voices, their stories, tangible evidence of the impact art could have on the community. But with that thought came another unsettling question. Would they see him as a peer worthy of collaboration, or simply a fledgling without a firm footing in the world he sought to embrace? The uncertainty loomed, but Max felt ready to confront the narrative within him that had long awaited this moment, a defining choice that could unveil the leader hiding beneath his own doubts. What new challenges would he face as he navigated this uncharted territory? And could he truly turn his vision into a reality before the board's meeting approached swiftly? Max leaned over the notepad, sharpening his focus as ideas surged within him. The prospect of reaching out to other artists felt exhilarating yet daunting. How would those with established careers view him, an aspiring curator still trying to solidify his footing in a world that demanded both charisma and credibility? As he sat in the muted light of the diner, surrounded by the gentle hum of late-night conversations, he contemplated his next steps with growing intensity. His attention was drawn back to Omar, who was eagerly outlining potential contacts within their artistic circle. You have to position yourself as someone who's building a bridge, Max. Not just to them, but between art and its audiences, he asserted, his enthusiasm infectious. Imagine an exhibit that tells stories of struggle and success. Artists can share their journeys alongside their work. The validation sparked a shift in Max. It was one thing to draft a proposal rich with numbers and projections, but weaving a narrative that resonated emotionally felt like a powerful strategy in its own right. What if he organized a panel featuring these artists? Their stories could illustrate the gallery's importance, elevating it from a mere space to a sanctuary for creativity. As he considered this, discomfort bloomed within him. What right did he have to ask seasoned artists for their stories? His mind spiraled into uncertainty as he envisioned their potential dismissals, the echoes of rejection rattling against his budding confidence. Could he bear that vulnerability? The thought of facing their judgment felt like a tightrope walk over a chasm of self-worth. Perhaps start smaller, Omar suggested, reading the hesitation in Max's demeanor. Contact a few, maybe those you admire most. You can frame it as a collaborative opportunity. They'll appreciate that you see value in more than just the art. Show them that you want to create a dialogue. Max nodded slowly, the tension of sitting on the edge of ambition and fear palpable. He scribbled down names, established figures who had once inspired him, artists whose work spoke of resilience. The enormity of his task settled over him like a weighted blanket. Each name was not merely a connection, but a testament to his own aspirations, his desire to belong in a realm where he felt like an outsider. He began drafting outreach emails, his fingers trembling slightly as they hovered over the keyboard. With every word, the nagging voice of insecurity cut deeper. What if they see through me? A voice whispered in the recesses of his mind. What if they respond politely but refuse to engage? Biting his lip, Max leaned into the discomfort. He realized it was time to lean away from perfection and embrace the essence of connection, despite how fragile it felt. After all, he wasn't merely creating a gallery. He was allowing fragments of himself into his professional narrative. After hours of revision, he finally clicked send on the first email, letting the moment of doubt wash over him before he could second-guess his decision. The anxiety faded slightly, replaced by a reluctant thrill. It was done. A connection had begun, a step taken, even if that step felt like stepping into the unknown. Then it struck him, a thought that jolted through the calm uncertainty he had just embraced. What if those artists did want to share their stories? What if, rather than dismissing him, they might see the potential in his vision? That notion ignited a flicker of hope within him, the fire of possibility mingling with the smoke of doubt. However, just as an inkling of excitement took root, another aspect of his proposal crystallized. He realized that he could scaffold their narratives with a business plan that illuminated financial sustainability. Stories wouldn't just captivate. They could also demonstrate the gallery's necessity in a financial structure that disarmed critics like Vera. Max felt the heartbeat of his vision synchronizing with purpose. His small success in sending the email would multiply as he put forth his proposal, a blend of passion and numbers, a tapestry woven with the shared threads of artistic journeys. Suddenly, he saw it clearly. It wasn't just about him anymore. It was about the community of artists, each one a voice that could resonate far beyond his own. As the night wore on, he finalized his proposal with renewed fervor, fueled by his mission and the potential for collaboration. Yet lingering within was a hard truth. He needed to present it before the board, to face their skepticism directly. But would their response uplift him or crush his newly forged vision? The tension built as he prepared for the approaching board meeting, each tick of the clock amplifying his trepidation. The moment of exposure was close at hand, a confrontation that could either validate his ambitions or amplify his fears tenfold. Was he ready for the potential fallout? And could he truly stand firm if the outcome differed from his hopes? Max's heart raced as he entered the boardroom, the sterile air heavy with expectations. The sleek conference table reflected the artificial lighting overhead, mirroring the rigidity of the environment that had always made him feel like an interloper. Today, however, he carried a different weight on his shoulders, a burgeoning confidence sculpted by spontaneous emails and dreams knitted with ambition. As he settled into his seat, he glanced at the board members, their faces a mosaic of skepticism, neutrality, and, masked under layers of professionalism, curiosity. Vera sat front and center, her professional facade a formidable fortress. In that moment, it struck him how much he placed on this meeting, not just for the gallery, but for himself. It was time to strip away the insecurities, to lay bare the vision pulsating within him. "Thank you all for being here," he began. His voice trembled, betraying the storm brewing beneath his composed exterior. He cleared his throat, willing the tension to dissipate. "Today, I want to discuss not just the gallery's future, but also how we can create a space that resonates with our audience on a deeper level through the very narratives that shape the art itself." As he spoke, Max felt the words flowing like a river, breaking free from the constraints of its banks. He spoke of connection, of sharing stories that elucidated the trials and triumphs of artists whose works adorn the walls. He painted a picture of vibrant panels where the artist would personally engage with audiences. With every point he made, he infused his proposal with energy and authenticity, looking directly into the eyes of the board members, daring them to question him. Vera raised an eyebrow, her skepticism rippling through the room. "Integrating storytelling into a financial model is ambitious, Max," she interjected, her voice steady yet draped in doubt. "But how do you expect to translate emotional narratives into attendance figures and revenue?" Max felt a sharp sting in his gut. Doubt had a way of creeping back in, coiling itself tightly around his courage. He took a deep breath, reminding himself of the emails that had echoed with enthusiasm and potential. "It's about creating a narrative that our community can resonate with. When art becomes a shared story, it becomes more than just an exhibition. It turns into an experience, drawing audiences who are emotionally invested." He noticed nods from a few board members. Could it be? Did they see the merit in his vision? Vera remained stoic, scrutinizing him like a hawk. "And what proof do we have that this would translate into financial sustainability? Emotion is fleeting, and art must pay the bills." A wave of frustration surged through him, but beneath it, a deeper realization began to crystallize. He wasn't merely defending a concept. He was positioning possibility against pragmatism. "The stories we craft around art form a bridge, Vera. They engage audiences who seek connection, who want to feel. By showcasing the artist's journeys, we actually create loyal supporters who want to invest in something greater than themselves." The room fell into silence. Max's heart pounded as he pivoted, sensing the moment. Imagine leveraging social media to reach beyond traditional audiences. Artists could share their stories in short videos, creating inroads long before the exhibit even opens. "We create a dialogue, a movement, not just a display." As he concluded, he felt the heat of anticipation mixed with residual nerve. The board members exchanged glances, and he could see the gears turning behind their eyes. Daring to believe in his vision transformed him from a timid presenter to a bold advocate. And then it began the question and answer session. He braced himself, ready to confront the residual doubt in his own mind. Every question posed was a challenge, a direct confrontation with the very insecurities that had haunted him. But in this clash, he found strength. The more they probed, the more he responded with clarity honed by his nights of drafting emails and strategies. Despite Vera's relentless skepticism, he could sense the tides shifting, an undercurrent of possibility beginning to stir within the rigid boardroom. Just as an edge of optimism began to root itself, Vera delivered a final blow. "Max, forgive my skepticism, but one board meeting does not equate to a guaranteed success. You will need to prove you can maintain this passionate connection, and you'll face dissent, trust me." His stomach dropped, the reminder of uncertainty triggering doubt anew. But as Max met her gaze, a resolute thought anchored his mind. He had taken the first step toward asserting his place within this realm. With the meeting drawing to a close, he felt a mix of hope and apprehension swirling within. Could he navigate the complexities that lay ahead? He had sparked interest, but would his vision endure the scrutiny that was destined to follow? With that weight of uncertainty, another layer of his journey unfolded, one that would test the core of his resolve and redefine what it meant to truly stand firm amid opposition. Could he forge ahead despite the mercurial nature of support? Would this newfound belief withstand the inevitable challenges that awaited? Max left the boardroom with the weight of both possibility and doubt pressing against his chest. Each step echoed in his mind, amplifying his anxiety as he replayed Vera's dismissive comments. Her piercing gaze self-assuredly filled with skepticism. It wasn't just her words that lingered. It was the fear they rekindled, reverberating in the corners of his vulnerability. He took a moment in the hallway, leaning against the cool wall, letting the sterile fluorescent lights wash over him. He hadn't just presented an idea. He had laid bare a part of himself. The conviction he'd felt as he spoke seemed to fade under the fluorescent, but a tempting echo of self-doubt clawing its way back. Max's mind raced. How could he possibly ensure that the board would feel secure enough to invest in an idea so reliant on emotion? Was he really ready to face the battle that lay ahead? Determined not to bow to despair, he reminded himself of something crucial. Art had always been about connection. It was a life force that bound people together through experience, and he could find a way to channel that into success. What if he took the next step to explore the gallery's past offerings, identifying winning formulas or elements that flopped? He needed data, evidence, and a strategic approach that merged creativity with functionality. That evening, he set to work scouring old reports, analyzing foot traffic during previous exhibitions, and examining feedback forms to unearth any consistent patterns. Slowly, an image began to form from the jumbled statistics and notes. Max outlined a plan to merge structured events with the evocative storytelling he envisioned, suggesting artist-led workshops that incorporated their personal journeys. Each workshop would serve dual purposes, developing a creative bond with attendees while amplifying the narratives of the artists. Participants would leave with a tangible piece of art, donating their emotions and energy to the gallery. He embraced this challenge, transforming insecurity into motivation. With every piece of information he collected, he was piecing together a blueprint for a future that would make his vision undeniable. A glimmer of realization ignited within him. This was more than just a tactical endeavor. It was a recalibration of his professional identity. He was not simply an employee advancing an idea, but a curator of stories waiting to be told. Days turned into nights as he continued to refine his ideas. Max soon reached out to various artists, suggesting collaboration while emphasizing the importance of their journeys. The artists responded with enthusiasm, each eager to share their tales. Their energy fueled him, allowing him to visualize not just a gallery, but a narrative-driven experience poised to redefine contemporary art interactions. As the deadline for the next board meeting loomed larger, he couldn't shake the feeling that unleashing this transformed concept would be a gamble, one that could backfire spectacularly. Could this unconventional approach withstand the analysis that Vera and the others would undoubtedly apply? His stomach turned at the thought of her fierce critique, but it was impossible to ignore the growing fire within him. Yet, beneath the enthusiasm and fear, a flicker of something deeper began to emerge, a sense of belonging that he had not felt in years. Each step forward felt less like a burden and more like reclaiming his passion for the arts, not only as a job, but as an essential part of his identity. However, as he prepped for the meeting, an unsettling thought crept in. What if this plan, this newfound direction of his career, was just a temporary fix? There would always be the risk of rejection once again laced into his vision, and he did not want to return to that dark, self-doubting place. The next day arrived, and with it the board meeting that would test everything he had built. He steeled himself as he faced the same sterile atmosphere that had once instilled dread. But this time, as he walked through the door, Max felt a palpable shift within him, a burgeoning warrior ready to confront the battle ahead. Could he turn fleeting curiosity into lasting commitment? Would the board understand the transformative potential he envisioned, or would Vera's skepticism crush the fragile optimism he'd woven into his proposals? The time had come to find out, and the stakes had never felt higher. Max Parker stood at the entrance of the town hall, the echo of the previous meeting still fresh in his mind. He was no longer the hesitant bookstore owner. wrestling with self-doubt and fear of failure. The weeks of preparation had culminated into this moment, where passion met purpose. He had taken the criticism of Vera as a launching pad, not a burden, igniting a spark that had propelled him into the realm of strategic planning. Entering the room, he seized the familiar yet altered atmosphere, a mixture of anticipation and trepidation. This time, the audience felt different. He sensed curiosity rather than skepticism when he surveyed the board members. Clutching his proposal, a well-structured document detailing his dual-pronged approach of community engagement and artist storytelling, he approached the podium with unanticipated confidence. "Thank you for gathering here again," Max began, projecting a steadiness in his voice that belied his racing heart. He recounted the essence of the gallery, the richly woven fabric of art and storytelling that had transformed his vision. "Today, I want to present a plan that not only honors my grandmother's legacy, but also ensures its sustainability through community involvement." He had spent countless hours combining quantitative data with qualitative narratives, and as he presented both strategies, confidence surged through him. Local businesses had already shown interest in collaboration, eager to integrate art into their marketing. Workshops would not just generate revenue. They would cultivate spaces for shared experiences, allowing the townspeople to contribute to art rather than just consume it. He noticed a shift in demeanor among the board members. Heads nodded as he spoke about the artist-led workshops, invitations extended to individuals whose stories would saturate the gallery with a pulse, an energy, a community heartbeat. The tangible authenticity of the project risked vulnerability, yet it wielded the powerful ability to connect individuals on levels beyond mere aesthetics. As Max outlined his metrics, including projected attendance, community feedback, and potential partnerships, he felt an exhilarating rush of validation. Art is not simply an exhibit. It's an investment in our cultural heritage, exemplifying the very heart of our town. In this moment, he had become not just an advocate for his grandmother's legacy, but a voice for a shared narrative that invited both risk and reward. Just as he finished detailing the financial viability of the gallery's reimagined role, Vera raised a hand and a questioning eyebrow, her trademark skepticism emerging once more. "Max," she said, her tone measured, "we see you've put considerable thought into this initiative. Yet, what guarantees do we have that this will resonate with the broader community? How can we be sure this won't be a fleeting novelty rather than a lasting venture?" Silence enveloped the room as her words hung in the air, an invisible challenge echoing against Max's renewed resolve. He could feel the weight of familiar self-doubt creeping back, but this time it felt different. He was no longer merely deflecting skepticism. He intended to confront it. "Vera," Max began, choosing each word deliberately, "the success of this initiative relies not only on its novelty value, but on the cultivation of genuine interactions. We will implement feedback loops. Each workshop will close with an open dialogue where participants can express their experiences, reflections, what connected, what inspired. This isn't just another program. It's a pivotal opportunity to build a lasting relationship between art and our community." He realized that he was no longer speaking for himself alone. He was speaking on behalf of everyone the gallery could touch, including his grandmother's legacy. When the meeting concluded, there was no applause, but a palpable buzz of conversation. The board members leaned in, exchanging opinions and notes. They were engaged, listening, not just hearing. Max left with a sense of accomplished vulnerability. He had faced his fears and articulated his vision with clarity, unraveling the questions that had once held him in thrall. As he stepped into the cool evening air, Max felt a deep satisfaction solidifying within him. He had transformed the gallery's future, not just for himself, but for the artists and the community woven intricately into its fabric. What once seemed a solitary endeavor had blossomed into a collective potential, a thriving ecosystem where creativity and commerce could coexist. In just a short time, Max had become a curative force not just for the gallery, but for his own heart. The shadows of doubt had receded, replaced with the radiant light of recognizing his capabilities. He had proven that he could advocate for his grandmother's legacy and stand tall amid stormy challenges. Max walked away not only with the promise of a revived gallery, but with a renewed sense of identity, a confident curator who had learned to embrace vulnerability as a strength. He had not only reclaimed art's power to connect, but also carved out his own place within that tapestry, one filled with ambition, resilience, and unwavering purpose. He would continue to build, to connect, and to grow. This was only the beginning. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and support this journey of transformation. Comment your reactions and theories about the Ending Your Insights matter. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Show them that personal growth stories can inspire change. Don't wait, even one more second. Your support means everything.